So it's so wonderful to be here at Occulture again. I'm Ayesha Adamo. Today, even though I'm an academic, I'm going to be talking a little bit more like a practitioner. I'm going to be doing more theology and exegesis today because this is the kind of space where that's very permissible and very wonderful. So I'm talking about the abyss. I'm talking about that red lady, sometimes known as Babylon among Thelemites. And the things I'm going to be talking about today are a little bit different from the way Crowley approached these things, but the takeaway is really that as we experience these threshold experiences, because crossing the abyss is a big one, right? And the earlier one is at Tiferet, this knowledge and conversation, as Thelemites call it. These threshold experiences are individuated, and a lot of people go looking for their experience in exactly the way Crowley had it, but it's not going to be exactly that way. Your challenges for the abyss are going to be decidedly yours. The things that you need to let go of and surrender will be decidedly yours. So this process is coming from that, and this is probably going to be the first ever talk about Babylon that doesn't really have any sex. I know what you're thinking. I'm like, that's my favorite part. What are you doing, Ayesha? You're ruining it for me. But bear with. None of this negates that. It's just another layer, and if some of it resonates with you, then maybe try it out. So first things first, going into the abyss. What is this abyss? It's the later threshold of mystical attainment as opposed to the earlier threshold of knowledge and conversation, both of which are quite advanced and take a lot of work. And it takes place at Dath, this Sephirot, this Sphirot that doesn't have a place on the tree. We're going to get to that in a moment. The earlier was this union between the human and divine at Tiferet, the knowledge and conversation. As Patrick just mentioned, you have the pentagram and the hexagram. The human meets the divine at this place. And this is the sphere of the sun. The sun rules in Tiferet. But Dath is a little something else. The task of the abyss is namely non-attachment, surrender. And it can have an entirely different narrative from the cast of characters that Crowley experienced and in the details of his experience. Now, Crowley's journey was marked by dropping everything, every last drop, into that chalice of Babylon, that valley of a chalice. And this was heavily inspired by the Scarlet Woman of the Revelation of John, the last book in the New Testament. And these are symbols and experiences that are suited to Crowley's particular challenges and, nature. I mean, I'm not a Freudian, I actually can't stand Freud, but there is something to be said for how Crowley felt about his mother. There are certain things to be said for, him having to go through this process of giving it all up to the great lady. So his challenges were related to him in a certain way. Your task will be for you. Now, what is this Dath point? Well, you can see here we have this one invisible Sphirot. It's like a little ghost there. That's what we're going to be talking about today, this ghostly Sphirot. And you'll notice that, each of these Sphirots, they're emanations of deity. These are each like facets of what this divine thing is. And it's also a way of organization. We organize these things by numbers very much when we do our gematria. And so this particular Sphirot, Dath, it doesn't have any paths leading to it. Now on this diagram, you see this yellow, right? This yellow zigzag path. And this is the path of attainment in many systems, including the AA, including the Golden Dawn. And you see these black lines between the different circles, the Sphirot. And, these black lines, there's not one of them that goes to Dath. The Dath point is kind of floating there in the middle, right? It's this abyss. It's dropped out of the entire tree. It doesn't have a place. Well, this is going to be key for what we're going to be talking about today. Also, it's the threshold of the supernal triad. And in a way, this is a kind of 3-in-1. the three supernal Sephiroth, you have Kether, Binah, Chokmah, those three top ones right there in a triangle. This is a gateway to those three, and really, these kind of act as a unit, and we'll be treating them that way today. And this is also where the abstract becomes material. Like in the upper, there's geometric correspondences, and above, in the supernal triad, we have the point, we have the line, we have a circle, but these are all two-dimensional. It's only after Dath, when you go down to Chesed, to number 4, that you have the tesseract, this kind of four-dimensional figures. So we don't get into 3D of materialism until below this supernal triad and below Dath. Also, keeping in mind this surrender, and Dath itself has surrendered, its own existence in the tree. Now, this is the figure of Babylon that many of us are very accustomed to seeing, straddling the beast, the lust card of the tarot, created by Lady Frida Harris in conjunction with Crowley. A beautiful figure, and very much, again, inspired by the book of Revelation. Here, the lust card was formerly the strength card, and it's the influence of Chesed on Gevurah, and those are the Sefirot just below Dath, right? We're getting to that threshold. It's the path of Teth. And this quote from the book of Thoth, the original marriage as it occurs in nature. So there's this other kind of union here. And for Crowley, he's going for this sexual kind of union. I'm doing a little bit of a different thing. Also, the path of the moon, Gimel, goes straight up through it, but it doesn't actually pass through Dath. That's important. We just want to keep that in mind. And we have this idea of the woman in the card being the moon and illuminated by the sun. And there's a procreation of the human going on here. And I'm going to really be emphasizing the more procreative part of this, the birthing part of this. Crowley notes in Book of Lies the passage that offers the seal of Babylon as hers and the number 156. We're going to be talking about 156 in a minute because I'm going to be doing, again, something a little different, but they're both good math. Crowley also notes, speaking of the vision and the voice, this signifies that the type of energy described is of the primitive, creative order. It is completely independent of the criticism of reason, right? A lot of time, Dath is associated with knowledge, and you have to let go of knowledge in this process. It's actually that very letting go that is part of this threshold. And very importantly, Crowley lines up his concept of Babylon, 156, and his experiences of her in the book, The Vision and the Voice. And it's all related to this card. And so the vision and the voice is quite important because it catalogs Crowley's own experience of crossing this threshold. So I want to go straight there. This is actually from his notebook, working out his notes from the vision and the voice. And it's quite interesting. This is how he calculated his spelling of Babylon, which I'm going to dispute a little bit. He has Bab, the gate, Beth, Aleph, Beth. And then he has Al, which we've seen already in Patrick's presentation. This is also quite a generic name for God across a number of civilizations in Mesopotamia. Al, this is a God name that has some traveling to it. And On, Ayin Nun, is 70. So he is combining these to spell out Babylon and equal 156. And he notes also that the name does not appear properly spelled until the 10th air is done. The seer had no idea how to spell the name till he was told this by the angel. And I respect that this is the spelling that Crowley received. And interestingly here in the notebook, you don't see Babylon associated with Kether as often. You often see Babylon associated with Binah. But this is where I think Crowley was very much on the right track in his notes. You'll notice that he notes that 156 is 12 times 13. The 12 being hu, He, Vav, Aleph, and the 13 being Achad, Aleph, Chet, Daleth. And describing this as the unity of Kether, right? Hu is, it just means he, but it often is used as a kind of name of God associated with the first Sphirot, the one way at the top, Kether. And unity is also indicative of this oneness, this kind of singularity. And so here, he's associating 156 with a singularity of Kether. And I think that's actually right on. I think the BABBL is right close to the zone, especially the gate part. And we're going to see this in a minute. Also, I want to note he mentions 156 is the number of the letters in a watchtower. Now, what's a watchtower? A watchtower are these kind of rectangular magical squares filled with Enochian letters that you will see certainly in Golden Dawn rituals, and Crowley used them in his practices as well. And they're from the work of Edward Kelly and John Dee. I put Kelly first because I think that the talent of the seers should be recognized. But very specifically, Babylon, which in Enochian is wicked, and Babylond, harlot, feature in this 1587 working by Kelly and Dee, and I'm just going to read it for you. I am the daughter of fortitude, and ravished every hour from my youth. For behold, I am understanding, and science dwelleth in me, and the heavens oppress me. They cover and desire me with infinite appetite, for none that are earthly have embraced me. For I am shadowed with the circle of the stars and covered with the morning clouds. My feet are swifter than the winds, and my hands are sweeter than the morning dew. My garments are from the beginning, and my dwelling place is in myself. The lion knoweth not where I walk, neither do the beasts of the fields understand me. I am deflowered, yet a virgin. I sanctify, and am not sanctified. Happy is he that embraceth me, for in the night season I am sweet, and in the day full of pleasure. My company is a harmony of many symbols, and my lips sweeter than health itself. I am a harlot for such as ravish me, and a virgin with such as know me not. For lo, I am loved of many, and I am a lover to many, and as many as come unto me, as they should do, have entertainment. Now, a lot of times, there's this very famous line here, I am a harlot for such as ravish me, and a virgin with such as know me not. A lot of people take this to be like, oh, well, if you ravish me, then you know me. But you people who keep talking about the virgin, you don't know me. I don't think that's actually what this says. I think actually the biblical understanding of to know, as in Adam knew Eve, is just to have had intimacy with. And I think what this really says is that the ones who have had this kind of intimacy with me, they see me as the harlot. The ones who have not see me as a virgin. It's even, it's in balance. There's no better or worse, because I am many things. And, this work of Kelly and Dee, it has its antecedents. It has other inspired spiritual received works that have a similar flavor, and one of them is Thunder Perfect Mind. And this is a 4th century text from Nag Hammadi Library, is a Gnostic text, and here we have the translation by April DeConnick. You'll see some similarities. I have been sent from the power. I have come to everyone who contemplates me. I have been found by everyone who seeks me. Look at me. Everyone who contemplates me. Hearers hear me. Everyone who waits for me, take me. Do not banish me. Do not speak hatefully about me, and do not listen to hate. Do not be ignorant about me wherever or whenever. Be on your guard. Do not be ignorant about me. I am the first and the last. I am honored and I am scorned. I am whore and holy. I am wife and virgin. I am mother and daughter. I am the limbs of my mother. I am barren, and many are my sons. I have a great wedding, yet I have no husband. I am midwife, yet I do not birth. I am the comfort in my labor pains. I am the bride and the groom. My husband birthed me. I am the mother of my father. I am the sister of my husband. He is my offspring. So you see here, this has a very similar sentiment and very much this balance of being both whore and holy and virgin and wife. It's a yes and. It's all of these things. And also the offspring. And let's keep the offspring in mind. I don't know if I'm going to, well, I'll play a little bit of this. This is a setting of that text from Thunder Perfect Mind that was done by Paul Mortia, who is my fellow PhD student at Rice. He is in music composition, and it's in just intonation, so it has some sweet notes in it that are very juicy and pungent. And let's just give it a little play here. I'm also in this as the human, doing movements. And let's see if it will play. And we don't have volume. Oh, we worked this out before. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to move on from that. But I will perhaps be able to show you at a later time. So, getting back to this, Patrick set me up really well for this idea of Saturn. And Saturn is associated with Binah, but the location of Binah actually moves over to the center, to the Doth point, when we do, for example, the greater ritual of the hexagram, right? We do it out with our boom, 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 starting at that Doth point at the top. You can see this in the hexagram here. Saturn is moved to the center. And I want you to bear this in mind because very much this is also the gate of Saturn, talking about gates. So we have this, we're getting to this idea of BABBL that I'm going to talk about. And in Hebrew, Babylon, the city, is Baval, Beth Lamed. And it's noted as being associated with Balal, which means confusing, to confound. So Babel and Balal are both part of this passage in Genesis, the Tower of Babel, which has a lot of play on words in the language. That's Genesis 11, 1 through 9. And by the way, this is all coming from Thayer's Greek-English Lexicon of the New Testament from 1889, which Crowley may have perused. I don't actually know. Thayer notes that it is more likely that Babylon, this Babbel, came from BABBL, Beth Aleph Beth, Beth Lamed, the gate, the court in the city, and the god Belus. And the old Assyrian BABBL, the gate of God. Now, you remember in Crowley's notes, he also had this idea of the gate there, right? So I think he was very much on the right track with the gateness. And of course, he loves the gate as an orifice, if you will. I'm not quite going there. But there's some more backup for this spelling, Babilu as the gate of Saturn. The Sanchuniathon of the Phoenicians called Kronos El. Aleph Lamed, similar, we have this El god. And Diodorus of the 1st century BC recorded that Babylonians revered Saturn and called him Elos, substituting Helios, the sun. So we have this relationship between the sun and Saturn. The last character in the Old Assyrian, which I've written there on the bottom, that indicates a city and specifically a valley. And so this indentation, right, like the chalice, this valley concept is also a part of the word. And in my notes, I also want to bring out this idea that we can consider the gate through which Kronos passed, Gaia. We're relating the earth to this point, right, to this Saturn point. So we often say Kether is in Malkuth. And a lot of people take this to have a sexual meaning, and it can, but it's also much more than that. It's that the earthly material is very much a part of the spiritual. I think both our previous talks here, Patrick and Matthew, have gotten to that idea that the material and the spiritual are very much connected. So I was just in Cappadocia a few days ago, and wouldn't you know, I came upon a gate. This is in Derinkuyu underground city, and this city is at least 3,000 years old, possibly older, and the gates they used were pretty much the glyph of the sun. You have a circle with a dot in the middle. Now, the dot is often associated with Hadith, the circle with Nuit, and their union is this glyph of the sun, very thelemic. It even says in Liber AL, in the sphere, I am everywhere the center. This is the voice of Hadith. As she, the circumference, is nowhere found. And that's in chapter 2, verse 3. We also have that in chapter 1. Let it be ever thus. Let the men speak not of thee as one, but as none. But let them speak not of thee as all, since thou art continuous. Nuit is continuous. So the circle is ever her shape. And so this gate, this circular gate, and I was told by our guide that the hole in the center was used specifically for protection, to poke out an eye through there to see if there were enemies, and if there were assailants coming, to poke a spear through it. And I know what you're thinking, a spear in the hole, an eye in the hole. And yes, those are there too, but there's more to it than that. So basically what I'm introducing here is this different spelling of Babylon, this BABBL 37 current, a very receptive current that equates to 37. Now, a 37 is a very, very good number. 37 is Yechida. That's Kether. That is the essence of Kether, this very, primal ether experience. And so when I said before that Crowley was really hitting on something right when he was associating Kether with Babylon, this is what I mean. And this is why I feel this 37 spelling has very good value also. 37 times 3 is 111, which is the Fool, which is receptivity. So this very receptive current of Babylon and the abyss that I'm bringing through relates to this number and this spelling. So here we have this spelling, and you'll notice the 3 Beths, right? And the Beth is the Magus card in the tarot, and we have it 3 times. It's like Trismegistus, 3 times great. But when we take them away, it's just AL. It's AL. Well, that was convenient. That's a very, very kind of beautiful spelling. So I like this. I like having found this. And really, this may resonate with you or not, but it's about the process. You're going to have your own process and words and ideas that are revealed to you. And when you take them in and when you begin to explore them and research them, and things will come from, your guidance will tell you things and where to look and find this kind of justification of the revelation. This is part of the scientific illuminism that Matthew was talking about as well. So one of the figures that was brought to me through my guidance, instead of the Scarlet Woman, is a different Scarlet Woman, Leah of the Valley of Adam. And I first got this, I'm like, what are you talking about? Who is this? Leah Bagia Ha'adam. 108 is her number. And for anyone who's into Buddhist practices, 108 is a very big deal. That's a talk for another day. But I'm associating this with biblical Leah and Adam, who are the rejected firstborn in the book of Genesis. Now, Adam also means red, and it's the name of Esau, biblical Esau. Now, Esau in Genesis is actually not negative. Later on, Esau takes on all these things, in battles of Christianity and Judaism, like, oh, you're the Esau, you're the Esau. It's always the bad guy, right? Oh. But actually in Genesis, it's not that way. What happens in Genesis when Esau's birthright is taken by his brother Jacob, who astutely finds a way to finagle this birthright of the firstborn from him and pretend to be Esau to his father who's, on the deathbed going blind. He actually goes on with his life, right? And then, later in the book of Genesis, he lets go of his stolen birthright, he forges his own true path, he reunites with Jacob in Genesis 33. And Jacob and Esau see eye to eye. They resolve that, they embrace as brothers. Okay, so Esau and Edom, these, he often gets a bad rap, right? But I actually think that is not the way to think about the princes of Edom, or these dark figures are actually maybe not as dark as they've been thought to be. Leah, similarly, is the wife of Jacob, but the one that he didn't want. She is the firstborn, and Jacob wants to marry Rachel. But Havan, her father, says, you have to marry the firstborn first, and then work for me for another 7 years before you can marry my other daughter. And so in this, Jacob kind of gets his just desserts for stealing the birthright in a way. But Leah, she is despised in a way by Jacob. She's the slighted firstborn, just like Esau is the slighted firstborn. But also, she's the mother of most of the tribes of Israel and King David's line. And I know I'm going to have to round this up rather quickly here. Crowley was not uninformed about this idea. In fact, there's a little bit of it that we can find in 777. We see this entry here where he says, Yehovah Eloah Vadath. The reference is to Tiferet as the child of Chokmah and Binah. Dath, their first child, their firstborn, having failed to find a place on the tree. Dath is the slighted firstborn, the child that didn't make it as a sphirot on the tree. Also, we see in this table for the grade of Absissimus, the death of the firstborn is listed. This is the essence of what I'm talking about with my understanding of Dath. Bringing it back to Leah and this excerpt from Liber Samech, to resent destiny is thus to abdicate our sovereignty. This is the kind of receptivity and non-attachment to birthright that I'm talking about. Now, I have just a couple more slides here. This is from the Kabbalah Unveiled, McGregor Mathers, from the Rosenroth. It's a translation. Now we find that before the deity conformed himself thus, i.e. as male and female, that the worlds of the universe could not subsist, or in the words of Genesis, the earth was formless and void. These prior worlds are considered to be symbolized by the kings who reigned in Edom before there reigned a king in Israel, and they are therefore spoken of in the Kabbalah as the Edomite kings. The Tetragrammaton may be written as I, Yod, as we have said above. And by the name of Israel shall he call himself. He shall call himself thus in truth, for in the conception of the microprosopos is more properly under the name of Jacob, whose wife is Rachel, and his cognomen, as it were, is Israel, whose wife is Leah. In other words, Leah is associated with the macroprosopos, the above rather than the below. Also, all things cohere by the tongue which is concealed in the mother, that is, through dath, or knowledge. Thereby wisdom is combined with the understanding and the beautiful path with his bride and queen, and this is the concealed idea or soul pervading the whole emanation, since this is opened up for that which proceedeth from itself, that is, dath, is itself the beautiful path, but also the inner, whereto Moses referreth, and that path lieth within the mother, and is the medium of its conjunction. But whosoever it is considered in the outer, when it hath come forth from the mother, then it is called Jacob. So it is the inner and the macroprosopos that is associated with this Leah idea. Remembering also that BABBL is a place, a gate through which Saturn passed in birth, the loins of Gaia. Kether is in Malkuth, but here Kether also is, Malkuth also is Kether, and Kether is Malkuth. They are one in this process. Here it is not the insemination process, but it's he is my offspring. She is the space of this. Considering the practice of this to be pure receptivity, this is the being of space. And finally, also Nachmanides recognizes this, and a very important Kabbalist of the 12th century, and talking about Ararita, Achad Yehudoto, Rosh Yehudoto. Ararita is another one of these words that is collapsed, but it refers to Kether, the one unity, and also the primal ether. He says, the Kabbalist sages received a teaching from Moshe ben Nachman concerning primal ether, that it is called a mother like Leah. Thus it is stated in scripture, if you shall call out to understanding, Binah, Proverbs 2:3, she is the third Sephirah, which has been added to Adam. So again, within the actual, Hebrew Kabbalistic tradition, we do have this association of Leah with this point on the tree of life. And so I want to leave these with you as ideas to mull over, or just to think about how your journey is going to come to you, and how you can take what your angel presents to you, what comes to you in life, and follow each step into the next. Thank you so much.